Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, what's up, Cheap Shot Nation? It's been a while, I know, but it's time for some Summerslam 2001, for some retro reviews, sporting a t-shirt from WrestleCrate UK. You are watching Cheap Shot Entertainment. This is your retro reviews section. So we're going to look at SummerSlam from 2001. It took place on the 19th of August 2001, and it was from the Compact Center in San Jose, California, in front of 15,293 official ticket holders. So what did I think of this pay-per-view? Well, it's in the height of the invasion angle, so automatically it becomes a little bit more interesting. And let me say, this one is definitely better than the invasion pay-per-view because, well, it's SummerSlam, isn't it? And if you want to know what I thought of this retro pay-per-view, then please join me for the rest of the review. So let's go straight into this one, people, with the very first bout of this one, and it is for the Intercontinental Championship, and it is between Landstorm and Edge. Now, Landstorm, of course, always has to get serious for a moment. Thank you. And, of course, Edge is very rarely serious unless he's the rated R superstar. Thank you, Tony Chimmel, for that introduction. And well, let me say this: great opening bout here between two very good Canadian wrestlers. Of course, Christian would get involved, and he's a little bit of a tweener in this one because he's showing signs of going heel on Edge, whereas Edge is a firm fan favourite. A little bit of jealousy there, of course, being that they both came up together at the same time. But Christian spears Edge accidentally, and this leads to a near fall from Landstorm and some dissension in the Edge and Christian franchise, so to speak. Edge does eventually hit the Impaler and brings the Intercontinental Championship back to the WWE after Landstorm captured it earlier on. It's a great match. I'm going to give this one 3 cheap shots out of 5, and yeah, definitely this one is one to go and watch because it had everything in it. It had drama, it had the unexpected run-in, and the swerve with the Christian spear hitting Edge instead of Landstorm. But very good opening match for SummerSlam 2001. So we go into an interlude where the Dudleys and Test are both getting ready for their 6-man tag match later on in the night. And in fact, it is that is next. But before that, we get Jericho talking about Stephanie's first time and being the home of the Silicon Valley. Yep, this was 2001. And we got things like that in WWE. So we move on to the 6-man tag match now. This is very short and sweet, but it was one that was picked by my wrestling trainer, Paul Malin. If you've ever seen him on a show, give him a shout out. This one was picked by him for our match study sessions because it is short and sweet. It's 6-man, everyone gets their shots in. Everyone looks good, even though they wasn't given much time because of the stacked card that was on the SummerSlam roster at the time. So, like I say, everyone gets their shots in. There's multiple finishing moves here, but the match finishes with a clothesline from hell from Bradshaw. Nick Patrick checks on Spike on the outside, who's just been put through a table by his brothers, and Shane hits Bradshaw with a chair as the Alliance steal one. Just so happens that Nick Patrick went, "Oh, look at that down there, let's go and have a look." He's a bit of a WCW referee, and this is when storylines were actually good because even the heel referee was going outside to cause the distraction for Shane McMahon to come in and do his running jump with the steel chair. Now, I originally gave this match 2 cheap shots out of 5, but having done it on Match Study as well, my thoughts have changed a little bit because I now analyse matches rather than just watch them. Do still watch them for entertainment purposes, but this match is really, really good, and I'm going to bump it up to 3 cheap shots out of 5. Could have gone longer. I feel like it probably should have been given longer, but given the card, like I said for the first match, it would just not have happened with everything else that was going on in 2001. But solid 6-man tag match, and if you're studying wrestling for, studying matches, this is one of those ones that you can pick up a lot of things from if you are looking at matches to study for becoming a professional wrestler. Please do get actual training to do that, because I have been doing the training now for only 3 weeks. I took my first bump last night and it hurt without just saying that it didn't. It did, and you have to learn to bump properly because it can go very, very wrong. So when these adverts come on and say don't try this at home, listen to them, kids. And actually the next match as well was also on Match Study as we go through the year 2001. It was a title versus title match, champion versus champion. It was Tajiri holding the WWE Light Heavyweight Championship and X-Pac holding the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. And of course, both representing the WWE. I'm not sure where X Factor were in this sort of shake-up thing. Well, I'm pretty sure they were WWE, they just weren't involved in the main storyline. Sadly, a very flat crowd meant that this one wasn't quite as enjoyable watching it on the telly as it should have been, and it's always bad when the crowd can't get into something. And yet this match was actually really, really good. Again, it was a short one. We started off with 3 very short matches. Very short match, but again, both guys got everything in, and of course X Factor did get involved. However, the green mist, the red mist lands on X Factor, leads to X Factor and X-Pac winning the unified titles, because the red mist was hit not on X-Pac but on X Factor instead. But yes, this match doesn't get the credit it deserves. It really does deserve credit, and so does X-Pac, and so does Tajiri. I know X-Pac gets a lot of heat, but Tajiri is fantastic, and so is X-Pac. If you look at some of his work, he's actually very, very good. And in fact, Paul was telling us about the time they wrestled X-Pac, and he actually carried the match. So that's Paul, that is. But obviously this was when X-Pac was probably closer to 50 than he was 40, that kind of thing. But yeah, very, very good match. 3.5 cheap shots out of 5. I'm going to go high on this one because it should have been left alone and no interference here. But that's what X Factor are there for. If you're going to have a faction, you might as well use them. Very good match. So it's now time for that part of the video with which WWE superstar is at WWF New York, because they didn't have a spot on the card. Boom. That man or woman was in fact Perry Saturn, and he was desperately looking for his beloved Moppy. He even had them on the side of milk cartons and stuff like that. Oh, this storyline. Wow, Perry Saturn in love with a mop. Whew. Yeah. 2001, everybody. Let's move on to the next match. It's Rhino versus Jericho. Finishing with the O's in this one. But, of course, this had added sort of storyline behind it. Not only is Rhino versus Jericho, with Rhino beating up Jericho several times, sending him through the SmackDown set quite famously, which was used on multiple different videos and stuff like that. But of course Jericho's rivalry with Stephanie McMahon Helmsley at this point, with all of those cheap shots towards the future brand officer of the WWE. So Rhino takes advantage in this one. He takes advantage early with some back and forths here and there thrown in for good measure, telling a good story again. And Jericho hits a lion salt and crawls into the cover, but of course Stephanie McMahon Helmsley would of course get involved and break up the pin. Jericho kisses Stephanie McMahon Helmsley on the lips and gives her a smacker. She is down on the floor, she's down and out. I don't know what's in Jericho's kiss, but she was out for the count. Rhino gets the walls of Jericho on Y2J using his own move against him, but he manages to escape when Rhino comes back. Jericho comes back and gets Rhino in the walls of Jericho for Rhino to tap out. Now I would have expected something better from these two, but it is a very run-of-the-mill match, very down the middle, so that is where I'm going to go with this one. It's 2.5 cheap shots out of 5. Again, it could have done without the interference, but knowing what I know now about heel managers and valets, it's important to include them in a match. So they did this very well. Stephanie didn't get too involved. There was a lot of talking and stuff like that, but she did only get involved once or twice, and that makes the mark of a good heel manager, in my opinion. Good match with great chemistry. Of course, both these two coming from an ECW background, obviously Jericho being in WCW as well as WWE, and yeah, and the smooch from Jericho was just hilarious, of course, because, you know, it was. Let's move on. The next match is a hardcore ladder match, and it's probably the first hardcore match there's been. Actually, they used to do a lot of hardcore matches that were actually matches with no rules, but it was like bell to bell and that kind of thing. So this match is Harvey D versus Jeff Hardy, or Jeff Harvey. So that is RVD, not Harvey D, as it is on 5-Star Wrestling for the PlayStation, and Jeff Hardy rather than Harvey, as it was announced quite famously and used on a regular basis by Matthew at Botchamania. Hello. Just trying to get some more fans here. I'm yeah, searching. Click the subscribe button, by the way. This match is absolutely insane. The best match on the card, certainly on the undercard, and nothing more than you'd expect from these two. RVD, Jeff Hardy in their prime, both probably smoking something before the match, I don't even know, and the ladder just being used left, right and centre. So the Swanton misses. This is leading up to the Frog Splash, which also misses from RVD, and both try going up the ladder. There is a super duper plex off the top of the ladder by RVD, and both get back up amazingly. Hardy hits a sunset flip bomb from the ladder, and Hardy left swinging as he climbs up the ladder, and RVD kicks the ladder away, only for RVD to try and hit a spin kick and miss, but Jeff Hardy falls anyway. Back up, RVD pushes the ladder on top of Hardy, and he hits hard with the 5-Star Frog Splash to regain the Hardcore Championship and bring it back to the Alliance. This match was absolutely nuts. At one point they fought outside the ring, and the no, that's an invasion actually. He didn't fall down the side. At one point they fought outside the ring, and they were doing all sorts of crazy nonsense that only these two could pull off, and quite frankly, apart from Stone Cold Steve Austin, RVD was certainly the most popular member of the Alliance, and I think even he was a tweener at this point. He didn't really care which side he was on, he was just coming over with ECW, and what a signing he was. Right up until the point where he left and then came back, and then he left and then he came back, and he's now like 100 years old and he can still do all the stuff that he used to do when he was 20. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm going to give this match a 4 cheap shots out of 5, and it absolutely deserves every single one of those, because it is that good and it is that entertaining for the show of Summerslam. Moving on. Next match is a steel cage match for the WCW Tag Team Championships and the WWF Tag Team Championships. Of course, it is DDP and Kanyon, who are the WWF champions, versus Undertaker and Kane, who are the WCW champions. Now, the storyline behind this is that Page in a cage, that Diamond Dallas Page is stalking the Undertaker's wife, and he is after some revenge, of course, and yeah, these two get it. Kane follows wherever the Undertaker goes. DDP and Kanyon try and get out of the cage early, but they get cut off, and they never really get going in this match. It is all Undertaker Kane. The cage being used fully, Kanyon does escape and leaves DDP on his own. Last ride by the Brothers of Destruction, and they win and unify the championship. So the WWF and WCW championships come home to the WWF. I'm going to give this one 2 cheap shots out of 5, simply because it was very short and I'd expect more from the cage match and the stipulations. It's just the storyline was a bit dumb. You know, stalking someone's wife to get famous, as it were. And it was something that could have been used a lot better, especially involving DDP. But it wasn't, and that's that. That is history. But 2 cheap shots out of 5 for this one. Could have been a lot better. We're going on to the WWF Championship now. It's Stone Cold versus Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle has been moved into the spot of the saviour of the WWF as the Alliance grows stronger, and Stone Cold had made his move over to the Alliance. Angle meets Stone Cold in the entranceway, and fists start to fly. We don't even get started in this one for a while. USA chant going, everybody is well on the way with this one, everyone getting into it, and some more fighting leads to a couple of German suplexes, but Austin just will not quit, and he will not quit, and you get told that several times in this match by his buddy Jim Ross, because, you know, as much as he tells us all these things anyway. Angle gets busted open. Austin remains on top after that initial exchange. Angle then comes back with an ankle lock and a stunner, and more Angle slams get thrown left, right and centre. The match ends after a hard-fought victory. The match ends with Austin taking out 3 referees and an Angle slam. Pin is nulled by Nick Patrick, who awards the match to Angle via disqualification, and of course that means that Angle doesn't win the title. It is the right decision, but of course it was Nick Patrick who made that decision, which ultimately makes it wrong. And in my mind, back in 2001, when I was 18, that was definitely the wrong decision. This is when I was heavily into WWE. Of course, I've moved more onto the independent scene now. I know it exists in the UK, and literally and figuratively, not only watching shows but going to be on shows as well. Check out Aspire, and I'm going to give this one 3.5 cheap shots out of 5. would have gone 4, as this one was absolutely brutal. It was as brutal as the hardcore ladder match, perhaps more so in many ways, and Austin took a cheap way out. He took the heel's way out. Cheap heel, cheap heat. Austin is still the champ. And we finish up with the WCW Championship on the line. It is The Rock versus Booker T. Of course, Booker T brings the championship to WWF from WCW. So initially The Rock chases Shane after some shenanigans, that's the new word, shenanigans, and he chases Shane McMahon out of the building, and he hits then a Samoan drop and gets a near fall. The battle goes outside, sees The Rock nail a low blow. Book comes back and they battle into the people again on the outside. This is when WWE used to give title matches a bit more leeway. Back to the ring now, The Rock looks for a comeback but runs into the boot of Booker T. Of course, it is basically a 2-on-1 picture all the time. Jim Ross telling us that that's not fair because he's Jim Ross. Sharpshooter after a small exchange, and Shane gets involved again and takes The Rock's attention away from the champ. Back is now turned from the ref, and the WCW title shot to the head of The Rock. APA run down, clothesline Shane O'Mac, one chases him round the ring, in fact that's Farouk, and Bradshaw is lay waiting. What a clothesline from hell. I could watch this on repeat all day. I do love a good clothesline from hell. And Booker T hits the bookend. The Rock battles back again, and the people's elbow. Shane interrupts the count again. See, this is where heel managers are getting involved way too much, and it takes away the fun factor from the actual match, because you're now concentrating on Shane on the outside and what he is going to do. Booker on top hits the most electrifying move in sports entertainment, the five-time spin-a-rooney on The Rock, and The Rock counters into a rock bottom, captures the WCW Championship after a pin 1, 2, 3 in the ring, and The Rock now becomes your WCW People's Champ. And that is how SummerSlam ended. It is a great match. It is a 4 cheap shots out of 5 worthy match, and it told a great story. The clothesline from hell, like I say, very much a favourite part of this one, and great pivotal moment in the invasion angle as the WCW Championship moves over to the rival company. So, like I say, in many ways SummerSlam was very much superior to the Invasion pay-per-view. It's everything that the Invasion pay-per-view probably should have been. And now it's time for my final thoughts on SummerSlam 2001. It's a great pay-per-view from start to finish. Some very good matches at the beginning and some not so good matches in between, finishing off with 2 very good matches at the end. It's everything that you'd want from a pay-per-view, with the championship matches being absolutely awesome and involving big stars, as well as the opening match just showing what they could do, because someone's got to start the show, someone's got to get the crowd warmed up, and it just so happened that it was down to Edge and Landstorm, 2 very, very good wrestlers, 2 very good performers, as well as Christian, who got involved. And so those seeds of doubt within the fans as to whether Christian was turning or not. So it told a great story, that first match, and I really appreciate it. So that was brilliant. So there we go, that is SummerSlam 2001. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave us a comment, as well as sharing the video, as joining us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. This has been a retro review for Cheap Shot Entertainment, and I will see you next time for the next pay-per-view, which I believe is going to be Unforgiven, as we go into September and go into the autumn season of 2001. I will see you next time, Cheap Shot Nation. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.